How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, I know I've been putting up numerous videos about our royal son, and this is just one of them that's just sticking to me, and it's just so earth-shattering that this family has to deal with this. And I remember I made a statement years ago to a friend. When there is a tragic event that happens, and sometimes, it's not always a given, when media is first reporting it, they're pretty much reporting it truthful, but as time goes on, then there's the manipulation. There's things that may be slipped in that are very crucial and very core. Well, that's going to be presented in a little bit down the road, but I'm just putting that out there now. But I had ran up on this article, and it literally spelled out some really deep things. Now, this article here, which will be pinned, is by DallasNews.com. And you see the title here, Why Apartment Managers Really Visit Botham Jean's Home Before He Was Killed by Amber Geiger. Okay, so I'll read this article to the royal family. I want everybody to put on their detective hats and really pay attention. Now, they're interviewing the family attorney, Lee Merritt, and it's some powerful stuff that he's saying here that's gonna really just like, wow, really. But I'm gonna hold it there. You see, this is a long video, and it's very necessary. So let's get into it, my royal family. So, after Botham Jean, was shot and killed in his Dallas home by an off-duty police officer, attorneys and law enforcement officials said there was a noise complaint targeting his apartment earlier that day. But it turns out it wasn't loud music. That brought lease office employees to Jean's apartments hours before he was shot at the South Side Flats. An attorney for Jean's family said Wednesday, rather it was the smell of marijuana, or they ultimately determined it wasn't coming from Jean's home. Attorney Lee Merritt said. Reading is real slow, because I want y'all to take all this in. Merritt said Jean, 26, was watching football in his apartment September 6 when he was shot and killed by Dallas police officer Amber Geiger. Geiger, 30, told authorities she mistook his apartment for her own and thought he was a burglar. Jean's fourth-floor apartment was directly above hers at the complex in the Cedar neighborhood, a few blocks from Dallas police headquarters. Police who searched Jean's apartment after the shooting seized a small amount of marijuana, which was documented in a search warrant released last week. It is unclear to whom the drugs belong or how they got there. The day of the shooting, employees from the Southside Flats leasing office knocked on Jean's door saying there had been a noise complaint, Merritt said. Now check this. Jean told his girlfriend what happened and that he was offended by the woman's visit because he had just gotten home from work at PricewaterhouseCoopers and wasn't playing music, said a law enforcement official who isn't authorized to address the case publicly and speak on the conditions of anonymity. Like law enforcement, Lee has previously said there was a noise complaint about Jean's apartment the day he was shot, but Merritt said Wednesday that he had learned that was not true. Merritt said there hadn't been a noise complaint against Jean in the 2 months Geiger had lived in the building. Asked about noise complaint, a spokeswoman for the Southside Flats Corporation ownership said she couldn't comment on the ongoing investigation. Okay. The Jean family attorney also shed new light Wednesday on how he spent his final night. The night he was killed, Jean planned to watch the Atlanta Falcons play the Philadelphia Eagles. The first game of the NFL season, Merritt said. He was a huge football fan, and was looking forward to watching the game, Merritt said. A thunderstorm passed through Philadelphia, delayed the game by 45 minutes. So the game was still on when Geiger arrived at his door about 10 p.m. Jean was eating cereal, texting a friend, using his laptop around that time, Merritt said. A foul from work sat nearby, but it was too dark in the room to work, he added. The officer was still in uniform when she fired her service weapon twice, striking Jean once in the torso. He was found laying next to the couch, Merritt said. Merritt said he doesn't believe it was an accident that Geiger went to Jean's apartment or that she thought he was a burglar. But he said he also doesn't have a theory of what happened. He also said Geiger's account of the shooting has changed, and he points to several documents released in the days after the shooting. The affidavit that the Dallas police used to obtain a search warrant for Jean's apartment before authorities interviewed Geiger says she was confronted at the door by an unknown male who she may have thought was an intruder. The documents provided few other details, but did list that what was taken from his home, a black backpack. Let me hold this for a second. Now, the part that I'm reading about these the stuff that's taken out, is the next part of this video, when I finish reading this article, I'm gonna take y'all to something totally different. So keep this in mind, all right? But y'all gonna have it here to read at your leisure. So, the documents provided few other details, but did list what was taken from his home. A black backpack with police equipment and paperwork, used medical supplies, and 10.4 grams of marijuana. The arrest warrant affidavit written after authorities interviewed Geiger says she shot Jean from across the room. She told authorities that she had mistakenly parked on the 4th floor instead of the 3rd and inserted her key in Jean's door, which was slightly ajar. No search warrants have been released for Geiger's home or car. It's possible she consented to a search. In that case, a warrant would not be required. Police took Geiger's blood, for a test for alcohol. The test was still pending Wednesday. Jean's autopsy will include similar tests. Full autopsy results can take 6 to 8 weeks. Geiger was charged with manslaughter. All this other shit don't even matter, because we already know about all this other shit. Now, what struck me, my royal family, and I know it's gonna struck you too. Let's go back. Okay. This ain't no damn coincidence that that day that he got killed, that there's a call that definitely came from this bitch, or somebody did it for her, that he's a problem. All right? Now, first we was hearing about this music. It was a music problem. You would think somebody in the apartment complex would by now would have said, yeah, off and on it was a problem with him playing music. Never heard that at all. Then this marijuana shit, rather it was smell of marijuana. That goes right back to the bitch. Why would they even think to even put a search warrant out to specifically look for, unquote, drugs that came from that bitch? You see the direct correlation? Then our royal son here confides into his girlfriend, and he's irritated why they on his ass where he live at soon as he get home from work about whatever the complaints is. It goes directly back to this bitch. This is not a coincidence at all. But let's I'm done here. And now what we're gonna get into next is very, very key. Something that I missed, and maybe some of y'all missed it, maybe some of y'all didn't. One more thing I wanted to point out. I'm still on that damn parking lot theory. Now, if you go to Black Junction TV, I put up a video from Afro Synergy where he interviewed the barber that he goes to, and the barber happens to live in the building. And he said, when you go park on the 4th floor, there's no covering. You back out in the sky. You can look at the sky. Okay. They live parallel from each other, so 9 times out of 10 they would park parallel to each other. Because we are creatures of habit. But remember that she's so fucking tired, she don't have a clue what she doing. All right? And I hold her to a higher standard because she a pig. So, okay. So, remember here, the things that they obtained out of this apartment. But what y'all getting ready to hear next gonna blow your socks off. So, let's go over here. Our queen here, retired Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, has a podcast. And she said something in the podcast that made me sit straight up. I'm gonna let the royal family hear it right now.
Shooting involving white female officer Amber Geiger, who mistakenly entered the wrong apartment and shot and killed 26-year-old Botham John. Last week, the family laid Mr. John to rest, and on the day of his memorial, Fox News saw fit to post an inventory list of items that had been removed from his apartment. And one of the items that was listed was, I think it was 10 ounces of marijuana. And of course, you understand that this was very hurtful to the family, that on the day that they were burying their loved one, that news media would prominently report that marijuana was found in his apartment, as if to infer that somehow he was a bad guy, or somehow he was complicit in his own murder. You know, this is what police departments and media do on occasion when there is an officer-involved shooting, they try to dirty up the victim. They will report that, there was something in the car that was untoward, some kind of contraband, when whatever it was, the officer didn't know that at the time of the shooting. We saw them do that just recently in Arlington, Texas, with O'Shea Terry, who was shot and killed by a police officer. They said they found a Glock in his car. Well, they didn't know that the Glock was in his car when the officer jumped on the running board of his car as he was driving away. That officer didn't know anything about that. He didn't know anything about the reported narcotics that they recovered. The officer engaged Mr. Terry because he saw him or smelled what he believed to be marijuana coming from Mr. Terry's car, which is parked on the side of the road. And then later, after the shooting, they inventoried the car and found some other narcotics and a Glock. But the officer didn't know that at the time. And so again, the inference is that this guy, Mr. Terry, was a bad guy and somehow he deserved to be murdered, if you will. And we know that that's not the case. But this is what they do. They try to dirty up the victim. And so when I look at that inventory list, because there's some problems that I have with it, and I talked about this the other day, one of the other things that they talked about removing from Mr. Jean's apartment was a ballistic police vest. They don't say who the ballistic police vest belonged to, much like they don't say that the marijuana belonged to Mr. Jean, but the inference is that the marijuana belonged to Mr. Jean. So then is the inference then that the bulletproof vest belonged to him? I think not, because it had the words police across it. And if you've seen video from the night of the shooting, you see a female police officer kind of pacing back and forth, talking on a cell phone. And I'm assuming based on her stature that that is Amber Geiger. So my question is, since she's in full uniform, she did not change before she came home, how then did her vest, her ballistic vest, her bulletproof vest, end up in Mr. Jean's apartment? Did she take it off? Did she disrobe? Did she take her uniform off at some point during that night and take her vest off at some point during that night and leave it in his apartment? Because if she did, why would she do that? It doesn't make sense to me that a police vest was one of the things that was listed on the inventory. And then, of course, the other thing that was listed on the inventory that gives me pause is that designation for 2 RFID keys. Don't know exactly what that means, but I've heard that it was reported once and once only that Amber Geiger was some kind of on-site security for the apartment complex, and as such, she had a master key fob that would give her access to every apartment in the complex. Most people, if you knew that there was another resident that had access to your apartment, it would be very disconcerting. You understand that, the leasing office would have that kind of access, but to think the person 2 doors down can come into your apartment anytime they want to, that's kind of unsettling. And so these 2 RFID keys, what are they and who do they belong to? I'm hearing also that there is some kind of a tracking request, as I believe the family for the attorney is asking for an electronic footprint for that key. There's an interest as to whether or not, or there's a question at least as to whether or not Amber Geiger had used her key to enter her own apartment before she actually accessed, or I don't know how she would use her key to access Mr. Jean's apartment because her key doesn't fit. But did she use her key to go in her own apartment? Had she entered her own apartment before the shooting happened, I guess is what the family would like to know. And so they've asked for this electronic footprint to see when and where and how those keys were used. And I hope that someone will ask about this the possibility of her having a master key, which would give her then access to every unit in the complex. In other police-related news here in Los Angeles County, LA County Sheriff Jim McDonald is up for re-election. This is
Excuse me for that, my royal family. I'm almost lost for words. I did not catch that at all. That this murderer had access to his apartment. This murderer and the Rangers are complicit. All of them are complicit. They all fucking know. Everything go back to this bitch directly. And they sitting up here playing these motherfucking games. Now, I thank you, Queen Dorsey, because that is profession that you had. You retired now, and we don't pick up on everything all the time. So it's good to get a perspective for somebody that's willing to speak truth. That knocked me down. Knocked me down. Okay, so she can get a cut on her rent. You know, it's good, to know that there's, this apartment complex you move in, that there's a, unquote, police officer there. So people would feel more comfortable. These people are dangerous. And when she realized who was living above her, parallel to her, it bothered her. She wanted him out. She wanted to eliminate him. Remember what I said, my royal family, about the white woman and how she's very complicit in keeping shit going. And what's amazing to me, my royal family, is this system that we live in. They willing for Dallas to burn down to hold her up in lights. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb, my royal family. And I can be wrong. And we will revisit this. I think when everything is presented, I think that they're going to make her the sacrificial lamb, because they're going to look at the cost. I'm not even talking about money. I'm talking about reputation. Also, this election season, and people is real fucking tired of black folks getting killed every damn day for the dumbest motherfucking things that don't even make sense. And they have walked and walked and walked and walked even before I was even born, even before you were born, even before my grandparents were born. They continue to get away with subjugating us, fucking with us. And there was some factors that this evil bitch forgot. They have digital footprints now in that state-of-the-art complex. I can't let it go, because I have channeled it on her energy to show you how the psyche works. He been on her mind festering and festering and festering, because she was supposed to park on the 3rd floor where she lived. But no, the good Lord had her to go to the 4th floor. And again, we are creatures by habit. So you're going to park in your same stall. And given how high end it is there, everyone is designated a slot to accommodate your residents. Amazing. Now, I went out on a limb. I could be wrong. We shall see. We shall see. So, right now, and that shouldn't take long at all, they're waiting for everything to come back from the using that key fob, and I guess it records every time you go in and out. I don't quite know how it worked, but I know Lisa Cabrera can really break it down to us, because she said she was the type of, whatever field she worked in at particular time, one time, that she would program them and I guess deprogram them, and so there was only certain areas in that place of business that you could go. You can go. And I did catch when they brought in the evidence. I said, why she got two? What's going on? And I dismissed it. But again, you have to give the queen the credit. That lingered with her. So with them being overzealous, because they doing everything they can to save her ass, they did not consider that. They did not look at that. So these small details, my royal family, about her being a manager is really big. Very big. See, I hold her to a higher standard, even when she off duty, because you're professionally trained. Professionally trained. But no. They want to go back and forth. One minute they want to say she's a cop, and then she's just a damsel in distress, and she thought she entered her apartment, seen a big giant ass black man about 100 feet tall, and he wouldn't go by her command, so she had to do what she had to do. And then she do that phony shit on 911, talking about I'm sorry. That is a guilty ass conscious bitch. You ain't fooling me. You ain't fooling the royal family. These how these people insult us. So anyway, my royal family, this been on my mind. Heavy. And this, I just been researching, and I will dig till I can't dig no more. Because my psyche has to be satisfied. So anyway, my royal family, I know this is a unquote 2-part video, but I just brought it all together. And I will put in the necessary links, because Dorsey does have a YouTube channel. I'll put in the links to everything, because it's just good to get that perspective, because they ain't gonna be truthful, you know. And she's consistent on putting something up. So I'll put all the necessary links to her podcast, to her YouTube channel, and the article. And what I want y'all to do, my royal family, put on your detectives hats. Let's keep it core. Let's mix it up. So, my royal family, render your voice with your beautiful, divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.